everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of the Fashion Feed podcast. This week we're talking to Carly at Keystone Virtual. If I were to create a list of frequently asked questions that I get asked on a regular basis, are Facebook ads a good idea is definitely up there. Carly and I met a couple of years ago through mutual Instagram friends, and she's an award-winning Facebook and Instagram marketer and advertising strategist. That is a mouthful, with over 10 years experience in the communications industry. She works with independent business owners in two ways: to increase their visibility in sales via social advertising and to develop their social media strategies and train them on the effective use of Facebook and Instagram. Ads are obviously very effective for some businesses, but only if they're done properly. In this episode, we discuss Carly's unusual blend of skills which make her a social advertising pro, how to get to know your audience on a deeper level, understanding your goals when it comes to ads, is your website or landing page up to scratch, what on earth is a Facebook pixel and why you need one, and how much budget you should think about spending. Even if you're not running ads at the moment or even thinking about them, there's no harm in giving this a listen to lay the groundwork now in preparation.
Hi Elizabeth, I'm good, thank you.
Good, and welcome to the Fashion Feed podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do?
So I'm Carly. I'm a freelance media buyer. So essentially I support my clients in the e-commerce industry, including fashion clients, with Facebook and Instagram advertising. And I've been doing that for a good couple of years. And I've got a background in marketing. So I've been doing marketing and PR for about over 10 years now.
Yeah, and you're actually award-winning, aren't you?
Digital Freelancer of the Year at the Digital Women Awards recently. It's really nice, I think, because digital women are so underrepresented. This isn't a good start, is it?
That's fine. Yeah, women are digitally underrepresented. That is a mouthful for sure. So we were just talking before we hit record that one of the big things people ask me, probably on a weekly basis, is, are ads worth it? Should I be doing ads? How should I be spending money on ads? And I don't know the answer, and that's obviously why there's experts like you doing it for people. Yeah. So is it one of those questions that's like, how long is a piece of string?
It is. And I would say for most businesses, yes, it is definitely worth running ads. I see great results from my clients, but ads aren't a magic bullet for your business. So it's not just a case of switching on ads and expect the sales to be rolling in. You definitely have to have the right business structure in place to start with. So it definitely helps that if you've got some sort of organic following already, and that you're in that kind of growing stage of your business. That's not to say you can't do it early on. It's also about having the right structure in place in your business in terms of the right average order value, having all of your profit margins have got to be reasonably healthy so that you can afford to spend money on ads as well, because there's a certain level of investment, and the right processes in place in terms of getting stock and things. So there's definitely a lot to think about when it comes to ads, and they definitely don't work for every single business. But that's something that I talk with my clients up front. We have a look at all of those things that are going on in the background of their business. And from there, we're able to say, yes, we think there's a chance that, Facebook ads are going to work really well for you. And then there's always a period, usually takes between sort of 1 and 3 months of testing. And that's a really important thing to go through, where essentially you're testing your different creative, your different audiences, and working out what does work and what resonates, and what ads are going to give you the best return. So that return on investment isn't always immediate either. And you've got to be prepared to have that period of investment to start with.
It's a bit of a long game.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's not an instant win. For some clients it is, and that's great. But I always say to my clients, they've got to be prepared that it's not going to be an instant win. Sometimes it is more of a challenge it's like to get all of the pieces to the puzzle in the right place. And that sometimes takes a little bit of time until you've found that sort of magic combination.
And you wrote a really amazing blog post that is like 10 things to think about when running ads. And we thought it might be a good idea, or you thought it would be a good idea, should I say, I'm stealing your idea, to run through it. As like you said, you might not necessarily be in a position to run ads right now, but that's no reason not to get ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. I have a lot of clients come to me say, I want to run ads. And actually, when, like I said, ads aren't a magic bullet, and you have to have certain foundations in place to allow ads to work. So there's no point spending money and sending traffic to your website if for some reason they're then not going to convert. That's a complete waste of money. So yeah, there's a certain number of things that I sort of go through with my clients beforehand, or that I would advise that you start thinking about. And even if you're just setting up your business, or you're very new to business and you're not at that point where you want to spend money on ads, these are still good things to think about, because they'll also affect your organic marketing and other marketing efforts. And it also means that when you do come to want to run ads, you've got those foundations in place.
Yeah. So before we jump into the 10 things, or maybe what do you think that before, again, we hit record, there's the difference between an ad and boosting a post? Should we like debust that to begin with? Yeah.
So a boosted post is, you would have seen on on Instagram it's called promoted post, and on Facebook it's called a boosted post, but it's essentially the same thing. And what you'll see is often Facebook or Instagram will try and encourage you to do this. It will say this post is performing better than 95% of your other posts. Do you want to put some money behind it? And essentially what that's doing is it's broadening your audience that's going to see that post. So it can be a great thing for awareness. It can be great if, for example, you're running a competition on your organic feed and you want to get more eyes on that competition. So you can put a bit of spend behind that. But what it's not doing is creating a sales funnel. So there's a whole nother side to ads beyond the boosted posts. Which will allow you to create a more robust funnel, essentially, and taking people who are cold to your business and don't know who it is, warming them up and eventually leading them to sale, and retargeting them. So you would have all seen on Facebook, for example, when you maybe have found for example, a jumper from Marks and Spencer's or wherever you shop that you like, and then you add it to your basket, but then for some reason you don't purchase it then, and then you're retargeted on Facebook and it says come back and finish your purchase. So that for that sort of sales funnel, you need to use Business Manager and create a proper ad, and those don't show on your organic feed, but they'll show to the audiences that you specify. So there's definitely a place for boosted posts from an awareness perspective. And if you're just starting out with ads and you don't have a lot of ad spend, if you've got sort of 50 quid here and there, there's definitely a place for them, and they can definitely help in those early days grow your following on Instagram and Facebook, and create more awareness of your brand. But in terms of actually getting sales and conversions, I will always recommend that's when you want to start looking to Business Manager and creating a proper ad sales funnel.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm so excited to do this, because now everyone that asks me, is ads a good thing, I can just go and tell them to listen to this. And so for both of those things, I'd say it's definitely really important to know who your audience is, and in detail, not just like a surface level. Yeah.
And that's one of my first 10 things, actually, is knowing your audience. And people always say to me, oh, I know my audience. And actually, when we drill down, they don't, or they haven't thought about it in enough detail. So I'll get a client come to me and say, my audience is mums. And then I'll say, okay, but what mums? Because there are mums that shop in Poundland and don't have a lot of income. Maybe they're single mums, but then you've got mums who are sort of what I call very generic, it's Surrey mums, they maybe don't work and they've got all the time in the world to do crafting and spend time, and they do a lot of gardening or whatever it is. There's whatever your audience is, you've got different pockets of those people. So you need to really think in detail about who they are, where they live, what their income is, what they're after with a brand like yours, what their objections might be to buying from you, what their hobbies are, what magazines they read, what TV programs they watch. And all of this insight will allow you to start to think about how you market to those people, and also in terms of ads, how you can use the data that Facebook has to reach and target those people. So it's not just as simple as knowing that they're male, female, what their age is. You need to go a lot deeper than that to help you target and find the right people.
Yeah, even down to like what they're watching on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other brands they buy into.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what kind of
It
is
will
it,
help you target them and create the right creative that's going to resonate with them as well, because you need to know what content you need to put in front of them that's going to make them click through to your website and eventually buy. And if you don't know your audience, then you're not going to get your targeting or your messaging right. And as well, that's something that you should be revisiting regularly. So at least once every 6 months, and just reviewing your personas and who your target audience is and refining those as your business evolves, but also as you start to learn more about those customers. So when you first start out, those portraits of who your customers are might be a bit of an educated guess as to who you want those ideal customers to be. But as your customers start to buy from you, as you build up your email list, as you start to get customer data come through on your Shopify or whatever platform you're selling on, as you start to maybe ask your customers those questions on social media, you'll start to get a bit more of an accurate picture as to who your audience is, and you can be constantly refining those personas.
yeah. And then number 2 is about like, what do you actually want to get from the ad? So when we went back to saying it's a bit like, how long is a piece of string? Like, should I run ads? It's like, well, what are you expecting to get from it?
Yeah. So for most clients of mine in e-commerce, their ultimate goal is sales. So that's quite straightforward. But you might have other goals. For example, if you're running a competition, it might just be to get more eyes on that competition, in which case a boosted post might be most right for that. And similarly, even if your goal is sales, it's thinking about, okay, is it getting someone cold that's never come across my brand over to my website to try and get them to buy? Or am I taking someone that has bought from me before, and am I trying to get them to come back and buy again? Or am I targeting someone that has been on my website, has shown interest by adding something to cart, but hasn't quite bought, and am I trying to get them to come back and buy? Because for all of these different objectives, your messaging will be different. So you need to know what you're trying to achieve and who you're targeting to get that messaging right.
Yeah, because I guess with a competition, that's like the lowest level of commitment, isn't it? Just to tap follow, or so then, like, I guess the more commitment you're asking from somebody, the more in depth your ad has to be.
Well, it's just you choose in Facebook. You would choose, there are different objectives that you can choose when you first set up your ad. So you need to make sure that you choose the right objective so that Facebook knows what you're trying to achieve, and it can go out and find the right people.
Yeah.
Because the way it works is that essentially, if I did tell it I wanted to target anyone with anyone who's female, aged 25 to 30, Facebook won't immediately go and show that ad to every 25 to 30-year-old female in the United Kingdom, for example. It would look at your objective, and if my objective was conversions, so sales, it would say, okay, what females within that group have shown before through the data that Facebook has that they are quite likely to buy? Who are the people who online shop a lot? And it will start by showing the ads to those people. As a basic explanation. So choosing the right objective is really, really important when it comes to advertising.
Yeah, because going back to your customer, like I very rarely see an ad and buy something like there and then. Yeah. But I know a lot of my friends are like, oh my God, I'm a sucker for an ad. Like if I see it, I'll get it. So that's just like me and my friend who are on the surface look like the same kind of person, but it's like our buying habits are very different as well. So
yeah, and that's why it's important as well to have not just have one ad and think, that's the other thing, people come to me and say ads don't work for me, and when I look at what they've done, they've run one ad to one lot of people and said it hasn't worked, but they've forgotten that some people need to be warmed up. Like, so for you for example, you might see something and think, oh, I don't know, it's a bit expensive, so would a 10% discount get you to come back? Would seeing a review from Stylist magazine and them raving about it get you to come back? Would a couple of reviews from other customers get you to come back? So it's about thinking, how can you take the customer along the journey? It's not just about showing them one ad and expecting everyone to convert.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, when you said about Stylist, I was like, yeah, I would definitely buy something if I recommended it. And so I've noticed recently that when I'm going through a lot of ads, they're trying so hard to make it look less like an ad. Yeah. And it will just be really kind of like hashtag normal content, but it'll have a really good offer in there, or like it will capture your attention straight away. So number 3 was about having a hook and like something to capture somebody's attention.
Yeah. So the hook or the offer is really, really important, and that can make or break the ad. So it could be something as simple, and it's something that I use at what I call bottom of funnel. So if I'm trying to get someone like you that's shown an interest to come back, I will use something like a 10% discount or free delivery if you don't offer free delivery anyway. Some sort of offer to grab their attention and get them to come back. It could be another hook, whether it's a particular angle. So if, for example, you're trying to sell a particular type of clothing to a particular type of person, thinking about how that clothing will make them particularly feel. So it might be if I'm an activewear brand, for example, and I'm trying to sell a particular set of clothes that are good for people doing yoga, and my audience are people who like yoga, I will make sure my wording and hook and angle is around yoga, not just about activewear in general, because I want to appeal to them. But also, yes, to your point about making an ad not look like an ad, that can be really, really effective because it fits seamlessly with people's feeds. So one thing I'm finding that's working really well at the moment is using user generated content. So if we can get in from customers who have posted pictures or celebrities or something like that we can use in our ad, they tend to work really, really well because they don't look like an ad on their first appearance. So that can be really effective as the hook to get people in.
Yeah, because it's like interesting, but equally you're like, do I know this person? But before you know it, you've watched the whole ad, and then you're like, oh, damn, I fell for it. And so number 4 was about making sure you're actually sending people to something that is functional, because you might spend a load of money on ads, but then you're not really very proud of where you're sending them to. And I've definitely had that with clients before. They're like, oh, my website's not really converting. But I'm like, how often are you actually directing people to it? Because you're not in love with your website.
You're having your website is where you're sending people, and ultimately where you're trying to make the sales. So you can spend all the money in the world on ads and send great traffic that way. But if something is wrong with your website, that when they get there, they bounce off or don't convert, ads can't fix that problem. So you always need to be making sure that you're constantly refining your website and that it's converting well. So a few things to think about is that it loads quickly, that it is mobile friendly is really important, particularly with ads. A lot of the traffic you'll find that you're sending will come from mobile because people browse Instagram and Facebook on their mobile, and therefore when they click on an ad, they're on their mobile. That your ad and your website are congruent, so you're not showing them an image that's really different in the ad, and when they get to your website it doesn't look the same. That it's a seamless user journey. That you don't contain any hidden surprises. So for example, again, you can send people with an ad, and then if they add stuff to their basket and then suddenly realize it's going to cost £15 for delivery or whatever, and you haven't made that clear up front, then you're going to lose people. So you need to be looking at your website statistics and making sure that there's no point where people are dropping out of the system. So have a look at your abandoned cart rate. If that's really high, why is it high? Is it a delivery charge? Is it the fact that you don't offer certain payment systems like PayPal, for example? I'll often abandon cart if I can't pay by PayPal because I can't be bothered to go and get my card, for example. So just think about the user journey and make sure that you've got all of those things in place, and test different things. Test wrapping your delivery cost in with your product cost versus having it as a separate cost. What makes your conversion rate better? So it is going to be an element of testing, particularly when you first start out, but you want to get your website converting the best it can, because then the traffic that you do send by ads will ultimately get you a higher return on ad spend because they're converting highly when they reach your website.
Yeah, I know. I'm so lazy. If that, my mum told me to memorize my card so that even if I'm sat on the sofa, she said you'll still be able to buy things. I was like, that is so dangerous. I'm not going to do that.
As I say, just making it as easy for the customer as possible to buy is essentially what you want to do. So a short checkout process. Don't make them create an account if they don't have to. Things like that. So sometimes it's really simple tweaks can massively help your website conversion rate, and ultimately that will help your ad.
Yeah. And then the ad has got to look good as well, hasn't it?
Yeah. Creative is the most important thing to get right. And I've seen this when I've tested different creative for clients. Just changing an image can massively increase our return on ad spend. So the wording is the same on the ad. I'm sending them to the same website. just changing the image in that ad can massively increase the click-through and therefore the return that we get. So you want to have a good bank of creative and different creative to test to see what resonates with your audience. So you want some professional shots of your products that are nicely styled. Similarly, you want to try and get some user-generated content so that people can see things styled in a different way to what maybe you would style them on your website, and see different people, different shapes and sizes of people wearing products. So that they can, again, it's going to resonate with different people. Different coloured backgrounds can make a difference. So you want it to be on brand still as much as possible, but trying to get that different imagery. Avoid stock imagery where you can, particularly as an e-commerce business. You want to be showing your products and your photography or your customers' photography. Test video versus image to see, again, which resonates best. You can create sort of a series of images that flash up like a slideshow, for example. There's lots of different creative that you can test, and you need to test that. It's different for every business as to what will work best with their audience, and different creative works best at different times of year as well. So you've constantly got to be refreshing and renewing that. So if you're just thinking about starting ads, have a look at what creative you've got, because if you've only got one or two good images, you're going to need more than that to get your ads working.
Yeah, and I guess going back to knowing who your customer is like what kind of messages will resonate at different times of the year as well.
Yeah, and switching it up. So, for example, you'll have periods like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, all of these different time points in the year, and thinking about, okay, what image and what copy is going to resonate at this time. So you need to be planning ahead and thinking about getting those images, and making sure that your images aren't just as well. I see so many ads like this, just a product on a white background, which you probably got on your website, because when you click on a product, you need to show it in its various forms. But on an ad, a white product on a background is very unlikely to get you that initial click through. Yeah. What usually works best is either user generated content or showing the product in some sort of inspirational way, so that people can think, I want to look like that, or I need that in my life. Because often, especially with fashion products, it's not necessarily things that people need. You've got to make them want it, and so you've got to create that desire in the image or the video of your ad.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, actually. I was thinking of a client in particular who is a denim brand in America, and she was saying that she's waiting on photography at the moment, but all she's got is these pair of jeans on a white background, and should she run an ad with that? And I said no, so I'm glad.
Yeah, no, because it's not going to show
You've said that.
It's not going to show the shape, the fit, the style, the length. All of these things with clothes is really important for people to see how they fit, and also for them to see the sort of lifestyle it's going to give. So if you sell country clothing, for example, show people, walking their dog in a beautiful location, like make it really like aspirational, that people are going to think, oh, if I buy this clothing, well, I'm going to be able to have that sort of lifestyle. That's what you want to try and achieve. White products on a white background can work at the bottom of the funnel when you're getting people back to your website, because they already know and like the product. So that will pull in from your catalogue, and that's fine. But more often than not, you want some sort of inspirational lifestyle type imagery or video.
Yeah. And then how often, would you say people forget about Facebook? Because there is such a massive focus on Instagram at the moment, isn't there? That would you say you need to be more active on Facebook to be running the ads effectively?
So if you're going to be running ads, the way Facebook works is you set up your ad in Facebook Business Manager or Ads Manager, but it will run to both Instagram and Facebook. You can choose for it to run to one or the other, but more often than not, I say run it to both and see your results before you choose, I'm only going to run it to one platform. But if you are running it to both, make sure that your accounts are active. So it might be that you post daily on Instagram, because that is where the bulk of your customers are. But if you're going to be running ads on Facebook, at least post once a week, so that you've got some fresh content on there. Because what will happen is if people see your ads, yes, you're going to try and get them to click through to your website and buy, but some might click onto your Facebook page. And if they click onto your Facebook page and the last time you posted was a year ago with a product that you don't sell anymore, it's not going to be very enticing for people. So make sure that you showcase any customer reviews. You can be showcasing new products, new product launches, talking about you and your business, particularly if you're sort of a small business or, you know, work on your own. So just take some of that content that you're already probably posting on Instagram and repurpose it for Facebook, so that when people are seeing your ads, if they do click through to either page, they're seeing some sort of recent content, and it's not stale and old. So that's not to say you have to put loads of effort into Facebook if Instagram is where you're seeing the return organically, but just even once a week and keeping that feed fresh is better than nothing.
Yeah, and you might surprise yourself that you get a bigger return on Facebook than you might have initially thought.
And often with ads, that's the case. Most of my clients are on Instagram, and that's where they will spend the time, and that's where they have their biggest audiences. But actually, when I look at the data, most of our sales will come from Facebook. So not necessarily the same as what you see organically.
Yeah.
So don't discount that when you start running ads. Don't think, oh, I'm only going to run them to Instagram. Definitely do both, and then look at the data. You can split the data down and see what platform's performing best. But Facebook's very clever. If it sees most of the sales are coming from Instagram, that's where it will put most of the money. So it will distribute the money where it's getting most sales. So from that perspective, I would run it on both, and make sure that you have active pages on both.
Yeah. So number 6, make sure your Facebook is up to date and you're posting regularly. And then number 7, well, yeah, definitely Instagram. I always try and recommend clients to never let their stories time out. So that especially if they're trying to grow their audience, there's something there that's like live, and like you said, it's not a photo that you might have posted a week or 2 ago. On Instagram, that's quite a long time. So yeah, just trying not to let that story like buzzer thing time out. And then number 7 is Facebook pixel. What is a Facebook pixel?
A Facebook pixel is really, really important. And again, it's something that you can add to your website, even if you are not thinking about running ads right now. So it's basically a piece of code. And on Shopify, if you're running a Shopify site or even one of the other kind of e-commerce stores, it's not even a piece of code. You take the number of your pixel, and there's a place in Shopify in your settings where it'll ask you for that number, and you pop it in, and that's all you need to do. And what that will do is it will start tracking the people visiting your website and the actions that they're taking. So it will track the people that are looking at products, adding to cart, initiating checkout, purchasing, and it will start gathering that data. So when you then start running ads, you can look back at that data. It will keep it for 180 days. So you can look back 6 months, essentially, and say to Facebook, as well as building your audiences based on what you know from your audience persona, you can also use the data that Facebook has and say, right, I want you to look at my purchases from the last 180 days. And I want you to create an audience of people that looks like that and show my ad to them. So it can be a really powerful audience, because Facebook knows a lot more about those people than we do. So it will look at those people that have purchased from you. It will look at their similarities and what those sorts of people are, and it will go and find more people that have the same characteristics. And those audiences can be really, really powerful. And it also allows you to retarget people as well, as we talked about earlier. So if people have added to the cart but haven't purchased, the pixel will allow you to say, right, take those people that have added to the cart and not purchased and show them another ad to try and get them to come back. So the pixel tracking is really, really important. If you're running ads and don't have the pixels, stop right now and put the pixel on your website, because you're wasting money.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. There's a tagline there, which kind of leads on quite nicely to number 8, which is being GDPR compliant, because all of that sounds a little bit intrusive, maybe. So just making sure people are aware that that's going on.
Yeah. So GDPR is my 8th one on the list, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because no one likes to talk about the boring legal side of things. I don't be a GDPR expert, so I recommend going and finding someone who is. If you need any recommendations, I can recommend some people. But it all comes down to your privacy policy, which you should have on your website anyway. But if you do start running ads and you have the pixel on your website, you just need to have a note in there that you are using the Facebook pixel. It's a type of, it's similar to using cookies on your website. So you just need to make sure that you have all of the right disclaimers and legal things in your privacy policy on there to be GDPR compliant. So definitely make sure that you are seeking some advice and that you have a privacy policy on your website, and you should be having that anyway. So again, if it's something you don't have on your website, then I really recommend going and seeking some small business legal advice and getting a privacy policy drawn up so that you can remain compliant. It also is the same with things like your email list and people visiting your website anyway. So you need it in place whether you're running ads or not. With ads, you just need to have that little extra mention about the Facebook pixel in there.
Yeah. And then number 9 is the money, the budget. How much money to spend, how often to spend, how long do you spend for? Have you got the budget and like you were saying earlier, the margin per item to be able to spend? So many
yeah, again, it's a bit how long is a piece of string, and it will vary by business. If you're trying to get sales, which ultimately I think most of your listeners will be, you need a healthy budget. So I say at a minimum, you're needing £10 to £20 a day to start with, to start testing. So 1,000 upwards a month, really, ideally, to be able to test different audiences and different creative. If you don't have that budget, then you're going to start spreading yourself too thin in terms of budget, or you just it will just take you ages and ages and ages to get the data that you need, and you won't start seeing any return, because essentially the way Facebook ads work is it's an auction process. So you're bidding against other advertisers to get your ad high up in the newsfeed of your target audience. If you don't have enough budget, then you'll start losing out on those auctions, and your ad will show at the bottom of the newsfeed, and people might not scroll that far, and then your sort of click-throughs and conversions aren't as good. So you need to have enough budget for that. So as a rough guide, I recommend, £1,000 a month. You can start on less, particularly if you're running them yourself. Don't let that put you off. But to start seeing real results, you do need to have a level of investment. In terms of, you also need to think about what you can afford. And this comes to really knowing your figures of your products and your conversions and things. So you need to think about how much is your product costing you to ship, to make. Hang on, my cat's banging on my door and I'm worried you can hear.
I know, my cat just came in earlier.
Right, let me start that again. Right.
Yeah, so having a think about how much it costs to ship and make.
Yeah, so this comes down to knowing all of your website statistics and all of your product and shipping costs. So, for example, you need to know what your average order value is of a product. And again, if you haven't started business yet, this might be a bit of a guess to start with, or an educated calculation, let's call it, and then you can refine it as you go along. But otherwise, you should be able to pull all of this data from your Shopify, or your e-commerce store. So things like your average order value, you then need to know how much it's costing you, your merchant fees, credit card fees, how much it's costing you to ship and pack that product. And from there, you should know what your profit margin is. And when you've got your profit margin, you then need to say, right, how much margin do I actually need to make to sustain my business? So to pay myself, to pay all of the other sort of general running costs of my business that aren't sort of very product specific. And then you'll be able to say, right, well, this is how much is left, and therefore this is how much I can afford to spend on my marketing. And also what return I need. That's the other statistics, not just what budget do I need, but what return do I need to make ads viable. So for every £1 I put into ads, how much do I need out? So those figures are really important to get a grip of before you even start running ads, because if you don't know what your profit margins are, and you don't know how much you can spend on ads, and you don't know what return you need, then you've got nothing to be aiming for. When you start putting money into ads, you don't know whether they're working and how much you can afford to spend. And it might be that if you come out with a return on ad spend that's really high, you can immediately say, okay, well, that's going to be quite hard to achieve. So what efficiencies do I need to make in my business to be able to get ads to work for me. So it could be as simple as, right, my manufacturer is taking 100% of costs up front. Can I do a deal with them where I pay 50 up front and 50 on sale, so that I've got a bit more cash flow to put into ads and things like that. So it might be that when you work out those figures, ads don't look viable for you, and you need to go back and have a look at your business and your statistics and do things to your website to get the conversion rate up, do things to get the average order value up, do things to make cost saving efficiencies, so that you can get everything aligned and the ads are going to work for you. And if you end up working with someone like me, they should take you through all of that and have a look at that up front and be able to say to you, okay, that return you need I think is viable, or that return you need is unachievable. We need to go back and have a look at your efficiencies before you start running ads.
Yeah, amazing. Number 10 is reading the Facebook advertising guidelines and just making sure that you're on a level with what they're expecting from you as well. Are there any areas in particular, like underwear, for example, that might be quite tricky to get through those guidelines?
Yeah, so this is one you don't necessarily need to do this way far in advance, but when you are starting to run ads, just have a look at the guidelines, and all of the Facebook policies are on there, and just make sure that you're within those, because if you start getting ads disapproved because you use copy or images that you're not allowed to use, then you risk getting your ad account banned. So yeah, things like underwear. I've even had things like jewelry. If you're showing it and you're showing a lot of skin, that can be quite challenging sometimes to get through. But that's not to say you can't do it. You just have to be quite clever about how you're photographing things and what you're showing. And often, even if those sorts of ads get disapproved, you can ask for them to be manually approved. All ads go through sort of a bot, which will just essentially scan them. If you get something like that disapproved, you can often ask for an actual human to look at it and approve it. And if they can see that it's, for example, with underwear, if they can see that it's not overtly sexual in any way, they'll, you can still advertise it. Also look at what your competitors are doing as well. So if you Google Facebook ads library, you can go on there, type in your competitor brands or other similar brands and see what they're advertising and how they're advertising. So if you have got something like underwear, which might be a bit more challenging, see what other people in that industry are doing, and then you can start to get an idea of how you could do similar for your brand. But there are certain things like copy as well that won't be allowed through. So again, for example, if you're an activewear brand, you can't go saying, if you're overweight and wanting to exercise, wear our stuff. Because Facebook doesn't like you pulling out negative characteristics of people or sort of insulting them in any way and things like that. So sometimes in some niches, you just have to be quite careful about your wording. And
or making false promises with
things. Making false promises about things as well. So, wear our jeans, they'll make your bum look smaller, probably isn't going to fly. So just be really careful about your wording, over-promising. But all of the guidelines are there. And again, if you come unstuck with anything, then there's, I'm around. You can always DM me on Instagram.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's do a bit of a recap. Number 1 is having a good understanding of your audience. Number 2 is knowing what you want to achieve. Number 3 is having a hook or an offer. Number 4 is like understanding your website and making sure that's set up for conversions, a great bank of creative, an active Facebook page, a Facebook pixel, being GDPR compliant, knowing what your budget is, and then understanding the guidelines as well.
Yeah, and knowing your objectives, your goal and what your return on ad spend and your cost per acquisition and how much your profit margins and things like that. Definitely with your budget. So it's just knowing those figures.
And if people have got to the end of this and they're a bit like, I can't do it on my own, I need help. How do you help your clients? Like, do you manage it for them and also coach clients on how to do it themselves?
Yes, there's several ways that I work with clients. Some clients are already running ads themselves and they're quite confident with it, but sometimes they might just come a little bit unstuck. So I do power hours just to help them with a particular challenge, or nurture packages, which are sort of a series of power hours where I can we can get on a call, whether it's once a month, once a week, whatever they need, and I can just say, if I was managing them, this is the changes that I would make, or this is what I would be doing, and just essentially holding their hand through it, but they maintain it themselves. Some clients, particularly small businesses, ads are really time intensive to get right. I spend a lot of time in my client ad accounts. I'm checking them every single day. So some clients just need to offload that. So I do that as well, and I take over the whole process and manage that for my clients as well. So yeah, it depends on where the client is in their journey, what their budget is, and how much they want to take on themselves. Some clients really love that side of things and want to do it, and others just like, I do not want to touch ads managing.
Yeah, that was me.
Sensible decision, because ultimately you've got to think about your time and where your time is best placed, and that is often in designing and making the products, and it's not in something like being an ads manager worrying about numbers and spreadsheets and
yeah, all the things that you love.
I love and most people hate.
Yeah, I know, it's very rare, so it's good. And also what I like about you is that you do have a creative eye as well as loving the numbers side of things, and that's quite hard to come across, right?
Yeah, so I've got a science background. I did pharmacology as my degree, so like the numbers and the stats is something that I really, really love. But then I've worked in PR and marketing for 10 years, so copy and creative is something that I'm really used to dealing with. So I think that's where I've kind of found my love of ads, is it marries the two perfectly in terms of being really data driven, but also having that creative eye and being able to advise my clients on what images and things work well, and what I write the copy as well for a lot of my clients, so being able to do that as well is a really good mix of skill set to have to get the most out of ads.
Yeah. And so if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, where are you best place to get in touch? Do you spend a lot of time on Instagram?
I spend a lot of time on Instagram. So yeah, my Instagram is at Keystone Virtual, and all my website has got a lot of information about me and my services. So that's www.keystonevirtual.com.
Yeah, I'll link it below as well for people if they want to get in touch. So yeah, thank you so much. I have learnt loads, honestly. Yeah, so I know people get loads of value out of it, so thank you.
Oh, it's lovely to speak to you. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions, then just pop me a message. I'm more than happy to answer any outstanding questions.
Cool, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have 1 minute spare, it would mean the world to me if you could head over to Apple Podcasts to leave a short review so that more people can discover the podcast and listen to interviews with inspiring guests in the fashion industry. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you join me for the next episode.